You are good at your job. Everyone around you knows it. Your manager knows it. Your colleagues know it. And somewhere beneath the performance reviews and the project completions, you know it too. And yet, every Sunday evening, something happens. A weight settles in. A quiet dread that has nothing to do with tiredness and everything to do with the fact that tomorrow you will walk back into a place that stopped feeling right a long time ago. You have thought about leaving more than once, more than 100 times probably, and yet here you are, still there, still good at something that is slowly making you miserable. This is not a story about laziness. It is not a story about fear of failure or lack of ambition. It is a story about a set of invisible psychological forces so powerful, so precisely designed by your own brain, that they can hold a smart, capable, driven person in a situation they would never have chosen if they had seen it clearly from the beginning. And understanding these forces, naming them, is the first step towards something most people never quite manage to do: getting out. The first trap has a name. Economists call it the sunk cost fallacy. Your brain calls it loyalty. You have spent 3 years in this role, maybe 5, maybe 10. You have given real time, real energy, real pieces of yourself to this company, this career, this version of your identity. And somewhere in the accounting system, your brain runs without your permission. Those years have become an investment. And investments, your brain insists, should not be abandoned. You do not walk away from something you have already put so much into. That would mean all of it was wasted. This logic feels unshakable. It feels like wisdom. It feels like the kind of thing a serious, responsible person believes. And it is completely, demonstrably wrong. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, the psychologists behind prospect theory, showed decades ago that human beings do not make decisions based on future outcomes. They make decisions based on what they have already lost or spent. The rational move, the one your analytical mind can actually compute, is to ignore sunk costs entirely. What matters is not what you have already given. What matters is what the next year of your life will look like if you stay versus if you go. But your brain does not run that calculation cleanly. It runs it through the lens of everything that came before. And everything that came before is heavy. So you stay another year, and then that year becomes a sunk cost too. And the trap deepens. The second force is subtler and, in some ways, more dangerous. It has to do with identity. At some point in your tenure, you stopped being a person who works at this company and became a person who is this job. Your title became part of how you introduce yourself. Your expertise in this narrow domain became central to how you understand your own intelligence and worth. The skills you have built here, the relationships, the institutional knowledge, the particular version of competence you have developed, all of it exists inside these walls. And the terrifying implication of leaving is not just that you would be giving up a salary or a role. It is that you would be giving up a self. Amy Rzeczniewski, a professor at Yale School of Management, who has spent her career studying how people relate to their work, found that individuals who see their work as a calling rather than just a job or a career feel the most meaning from it, but also face the deepest crisis when that work no longer fits. Because when your job is your calling, leaving it does not feel like a career decision. It feels like an identity crisis. It feels like a loss of self. And your brain treats identity loss the same way it treats any other threat. With resistance, with fear, with every cognitive tool at its disposal to maintain the status quo. The status quo is the third force, and it is perhaps the most underestimated one. William Samuelson and Richard Zeckhauser, two economists at Harvard, identified what they called status quo bias in the late 1980s. Human beings, across cultures and contexts, systematically prefer whatever state of affairs currently exists over any alternative, even when the alternative is objectively better. This is not inertia. It is not laziness. It is a deeply wired survival preference. In a world where the unknown carried genuine physical risk, the creature that was suspicious of change, that needed strong evidence before abandoning a familiar situation, survived longer than the creature that leapt at every new possibility. The familiar, even when it is uncomfortable, feels safer than the unfamiliar, even when the unfamiliar is better. Your bad job is familiar. You know where the exits are. You know which conversations to avoid. You know how to navigate the politics, manage your manager, protect your time. You have built a survival map of this place, and the alternative, a new role, a new company, a new industry, has no map at all. Your brain weighs these two options, and it does not compare your current salary to a better one, or your current satisfaction to a potential one. It compares the known to the unknown, and the known always wins. There is a fourth force that rarely gets named, and it is possibly the most insidious. It is called the adaptation treadmill, and it operates in silence. When you first took this job, it may have been genuinely exciting. New challenges, new people, a step up. And your brain responded with real enthusiasm, real dopamine, real engagement. But over time, your brain adapted. The novelty wore off. The challenges became routines. The step up became the floor. And without noticing, your baseline shifted. What once felt like progress now feels like standing still. What once felt like enough now feels insufficient. Psychologist Sonia Lubomirsky, whose research on happiness and adaptation has been cited across psychology and behavioral economics, found that human beings adapt to almost everything. Salary increases, promotions, new offices. Within weeks or months, they stop producing the emotional response they once did. The brain recalibrates. It finds a new normal. And this means that the good things about your job, the things that once made it worth staying for, have already faded in your perception. But you are still comparing the idea of leaving to an idealized memory of how this place once felt, not to how it actually feels now. So you stay for something that no longer exists. And underneath all of this, threading through every one of these forces, is something that behavioral economist Richard Thaler identified as one of the most consistent features of human decision-making. We are far more motivated by avoiding loss than by pursuing gain. The pain of losing your salary, your title, your team, your routine, your professional identity, is felt twice as intensely as the pleasure of gaining something better. Even when you can see clearly that the better thing is out there, even when you can describe it, even when you want it, the brain registers leaving as loss, and it will generate enormous amounts of justification, rationalization, and delay to avoid that feeling. This is why smart people stay. Not because they lack options, not because they cannot see the problem, but because their own minds are working against them with tools far older and more powerful than logic. The way out is not a sudden leap. It is a series of honest questions asked in a particular order. Not what have I already given to this place, but what will I give it in the next year if I stay? Not who am I here, but who could I become somewhere else? Not what will I lose by leaving, but what am I already losing by not leaving? Because every day you spend in a place that has stopped fitting you is a day your skills calcify, your ambition contracts, and your sense of what is possible quietly narrows. The sunk costs are real. The identity is real. The comfort of the familiar is real. The fear of loss is real. None of these things are failures of intelligence. They are features of a brain that was built to survive, not to thrive, to hold on, not to let go. But you are not your ancestors crouching in the grass. You are a person sitting with a decision. And the decision, stripped of every psychological force, working to keep you still, is simpler than your brain wants it to be. Every Sunday evening, that weight settles in. You have felt it enough times now to know what it is telling you. The question has never been whether you are good enough to leave. You already know the answer to that.